Welcome back, Tiger fans, to Rockin' Radio's football podcast. I'm Nate Edwards. That's Nathan Hurst. This is Before the Box Score. Welcome to bye week number 1. I really don't have anything interesting to say. There's a lot happening. There's a lot of conversation being had about Mizzou, college football in general. We'll tackle some of it. Talk about things that are going on with the team. We'll talk about where they stand at the conclusion of the first trimester of the season. We'll maybe get to some surprising developments with our former head football coach, Nathan Hurst. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. It's nice to have a little bit of a pause in the action. I'm sure the team appreciates that more even than we do, but things get pretty busy around Rock'em Nation and football season, and nice to kind of take a little bit of a step back and reevaluate what's been going on the first 4 weeks. I mean, certainly we still have plenty to talk about from Vanderbilt specifically, but nice to take the foot off the gas just a little bit.
Yeah. So let's talk about Vanderbilt. We were so enthralled with the 60 minutes of football that we watched on Saturday that we went ahead and did a show that night, made it open, live and open to everybody, including non-subscribers from Rock'em Plus. So we appreciate everyone who tuned in and gave their comments and had that conversation with us live as we all processed what the hell we just watched. Even with, a couple days to think about it, still kind of seems like the fandom writ large, right? The 51+% of the Missouri fan base still seems pretty upset about what happened on Saturday. I'm cooling off a little bit. Hurst, how do you feel looking 4 days removed from our conversation? How do you feel about this game?
The game itself, I still feel gross about.
Okay.
To be honest, am I mad? No, but I feel gross about it. The season as a whole so far, I've been able to kind of step back and it's like, okay, if you told me we were 4-0 to start the year, I would say I'll take it. That's what you needed to do. You needed to go 4-0. You needed to win all 4 of those games. They won all 4 of those games. Now, perhaps in a fashion, at least in a couple of them, that we wish was a little different. But the games have been won. 2 of those games were tougher because the opponents were better than we anticipated in August. And I think that did have something to do with it. And that's something that we really didn't talk a whole lot about after the Vanderbilt game, is that this is a significantly improved Vanderbilt team. Are they a 10-win team? No, by no means. But they are not a 2-win team like they were last year. I believe their over under for wins coming into this season was 2.5. And they're close. They're at 2 wins right now. They will far and away surpass that. I don't know if they're going to make a bowl this year, but they're going to ruin somebody's day or coaching career or season, because they're going to beat somebody that coming into the year had already marked them down as a W. It's going to happen. It's already happened for Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech fans are quite upset still about that game 4 weeks into the season. It's going to happen to somebody in the SEC. It wasn't us. So we can be as upset about it as we want to be, but it was a win. The season was not ruined by Vanderbilt. They will do it for somebody else. It's not us. So that's kind of where I am.
Yeah. I know I said it somewhere. I've written words. I've said words. I mentioned it somewhere. This is the best Vanderbilt team in terms of SP Plus since 2018, and that 2018 team pushed one of the best Mizzou football teams in 2018 to the limit, to the point where the Tigers won 33-28. I remember sitting there going, "What the hell is happening?" Because Vanderbilt would not die. And as we were getting to the end, I'm like, is Vanderbilt going to win this game? Is this Vanderbilt going to beat Drew Lock in his senior year? Like, it was a legitimate issue. And this Vanderbilt team is actually better than that one as far as quality goes. You're not going to see it in the win column. You're just not. Whoever made their schedule, we talk about Mizzou's schedule being super fluffy and easy. Whoever made Vanderbilt's schedule is a god that hates them, because their SEC slate, they have a bye this week just like us, but they have Alabama at home, at Kentucky, Texas at home, at Auburn, South Carolina at home, at LSU, Tennessee at home. I mean, for a team that's looking for wins, ideally you would have your winnable games at home and your games against your toughest opponents on the road, because teams that are that are underdogs, they don't win on the road. So you might as well have your hardest games on the road and your easiest games at home, so you can have a better chance of winning them. Vanderbilt has that flipped. All of their hard games are at home, and all their easier games are on the road. So they could be the best Vanderbilt team in 6 years and still have 4 wins. That is completely possible. So yeah, I posited. I was like, what if they're actually good? What if Boston College is actually good? They just won their 3rd game on September 21st. That's the earliest they've won 3 games since like 2019. This might just be 2 good teams. And at the end of the day, that might be the takeaway where we go, oh yeah, well, Mizzou beat really good teams, and we forget the fact that they came in kind of anticipated as stinkers. So I don't know. I mean, yeah, Vanderbilt's not going to win 10, but I don't see them getting to the bowl. What do you? I mean, where do you think they're going to?
No, they're definitely not going to get to a bowl. I mean, you read all that ridiculous schedule out, and you didn't mention at the time number 7 Mizzou on that schedule as well on the road. As their 2 winnable games remaining are at South Carolina and at Kentucky, and those aren't super winnable either. I mean, but or at Auburn, they could win that game, and that's a game we're talking about ruining somebody's
there you go.
ruining somebody's day. That's a game that could very easily ruin Auburn's season. Auburn is not very good. And I mean, Mizzou is better than Auburn, and Vanderbilt should have beaten, or very well easily could have beaten Mizzou on the road. So I don't see any reason why they couldn't do that at Auburn. But that's kind of where it stops.
Right.
But they're a good team. They're a good SEC team. They're going to lose a lot of games, but they're a good team. And Mizzou beat them. Should have beaten them by more than they did.
Yeah.
But they won.
I mean, whatever. You got to win. Even the bad teams in the SEC are pretty good. So yeah, who knows what it's going to end up being? It's impossible to tell. Again, the entire season is a puzzle. You don't really figure out what just happened until it's all done. So that's okay. As far as this game goes, though, the issue at hand was that it was a close win. It took double overtime for Mizzou to get to 30 points against the 91st best defense in the country heading into the game. So that's obviously a point of frustration. At the same time, Vanderbilt has Diego Pavia, who is just a guy who keeps games close, who wins games that they shouldn't, goes to programs that shouldn't be good, and then scares the bejesus out of you when he's playing there. Same for Jerry Kill and Tim Beck, who's the assistant to Clark Lee and then the offense coordinator, respectively. Here's the takeaway. It was a close game. The reason it was a close game was that both offenses were operating at around a 40% success rate, roughly. And really what it really came down to was that Vanderbilt made the most of their scoring opportunities and Missouri did not. Missouri had 9 scoring opportunities. Again, as a refresher, a scoring opportunity is defined as crossing the opponent's 40-yard line. I know we talk about red zone crossing the 20. A scoring opportunity is crossing the opponent's 40. They did that 9 times, averaged 3.3 points per opportunity. Vanderbilt had 7 opportunities and averaged almost 4 points per opportunity. That's really it. There were no turnovers. Mizzou rocked it in field position. Average yards per play was about even. It was that Blake Craig missed 3 field goals, and Missouri didn't score enough points when they had those chances, and Vanderbilt did when they did. That's why it was close. I mean, it's not rocket surgery. It's not anything that is really is a deeper dive than that. But it feels more than that. It feels like there's more to that because it was close against Vanderbilt. So emotionally, we're upset about it. Here's my big takeaway. Here's what I want everyone to know. You have to win your clunkers. College football teams are not good. Even the great ones are not good. There's always going to be a week where Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama gets into a dogfight that they have no business getting into. And then it's simply, are you going to win or not? And the great teams win those games. And Mizzou was found itself in a dogfight, and they won it. And I know this is tangential. This is anecdotal. This is perception. This is personal opinion. Nathan Hurst, I don't think a Mizzou team from 20 years ago wins that game.
A Mizzou team from 2 years ago doesn't win that game.
Ooh.
2022 Mizzou loses that game, just like they lost 4 or 5 other winnable games that they very easily could have won. The defense is better than it was in 2022 or 2021. The offense has more talent, and so that they've made plays that they weren't able to make in 2022. So they win that game like they did last year easily, because if they played like they did last year. 2022, I've watched many Mizzou games in recent years where they lose that game. 2019 they lose that game. Maybe not 2020. That was a different year, but 2021, 2022 they lose that game. So I'm very confident to say that.
Just win, baby. And let's not look past the defense. I know there weren't any turnovers, and watching an opponent have a 39% overall success rate is a little different than like the 20 that we were used to against Buffalo and Murray, but it was quite good. I mean, really, the one guy that killed him was Diego Pavia. He scrambled. He had 17 rushes for 95 yards. At least 7 of those were scrambles, which is just defense has got everything covered. He's going to run with it, which is tough to defend. That's what he's really good at. They had one receiver have more than one catch. That was Eli Stowers. 7 catches, 57 yards. It felt like way more than that, but it was fine. It was very manageable. Obviously, that McVay kid had a 65-yard touchdown. Okay, that's going to happen once a game. And then from the other rushers, I mean, Cedric Alexander, who's very good, 12 rushes, 56 yards. I know people will point out that's almost 5 yards per carry. Okay, sure. Yeah. He got a lot of that based off of kind of highlight yards, which is getting after 4 yards. So every time he got to 4 yards, he averaged 6 yards after that. If he didn't, he was getting stuffed. The line was not super great at stopping Missouri's defensive line from knifing in. I just, you look at this and I struggle to freak out about a defense that gave 33% success rate through the air and a 42% success rate rushing. Like that's what you want. That's better than last year's team. Just FYI.
Yeah, the defense played very well, very well. Would I classify it as dominant? No, but they don't need to be dominant every game. They just need to play well and get off the field on third down, and they did that really, really well. I think Vanderbilt was 4 for 14 on third down.
Yeah.
And so that's what you're asking of this defense, and that's what they delivered. Would you have liked to maybe get a turnover or two that could flip a field? That would have been great. There were a couple really one real opportunity. Sidney Williams dropped a pretty easy interception opportunity that could have flipped the field and given the Tigers the ball. Maybe
Toriano Pride got interfered with.
Right, that was the other one, but he was clearly interfered with. So I'm certainly not going to count that against him for not catching the ball when he's getting tackled.
Yeah.
But the other one, Sidney Williams had it in his arms and didn't haul it in. That might have been the one thing I would have liked to see. Is to pull one of those interceptions in and completely change the game, or in the case of the Pride interception, win the game. Yeah. But otherwise, that's what you want. That you're right. The only threat that they really had was just like we talked about before the game, Diego Pavia running around, and he's going to do that to everybody. A lot of them on scrambles, a few designed runs. Most of the design runs, even though weren't too successful, his most successful runs were on scrambles where he just somehow is slow and untackleable.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just what he does, and that's what makes him really, really obnoxious to play against. But more, to his credit, he does it really well. So I really no complaint after rewatching the game a second time. Really no complaints with the defense at all. No penalties. I don't think they had any penalties that game either. Maybe one. Okay, one. But it was hardly a backbreaker. It wasn't like a pass interference way downfield or anything.
Well, so, it was that interesting roughing the passer call on Chuck Hicks, where he went to.
Oh yeah, that was a big penalty. Actually, you're right.
That was a big one. Yeah.
It in remembering back to that, it was a clear penalty. He hit him in the head when he was throwing the quarterback in the head with his hand.
Mm-hmm.
He swiped at him, hit him in the head. It's just that's a penalty. It sucks. Did he hit him hard? Was it malicious? Was it overly late? No, but you cannot hit a quarterback in the head, and that's what he did.
Yeah, I mean, he knew it. The second he hit him, he knew it.
It wasn't. I mean, it wasn't anything that he did overly wrong. He was trying to block the pass. You'd have liked him to maybe keep his hands straight up as opposed to swipe down.
Yeah,
but sometimes that happens.
It does. I do think. I mean, we haven't talked about it. Nope, 5 penalties. 5. For a team that's been averaging like 9.
That was a significant improvement. And it was kind of odd to see them struggle with, especially on offense, without a whole bunch of penalties.
Yeah.
There was one penalty in the red zone, which kind of killed a drive, but that was the only that was the extent of the penalties in the end zone. That was a hold, but
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
you had
that was an improvement at least.
so on offense, you had two. Marcus Bryant had an illegal formation that Vanderbilt declined, and Cameron Johnson had a hold. Then on special teams, you had Jamal Roberts blocking the back, and Blake Craig kicking it out of bounds, and then Chuck Hicks. So five penalties called, 4 accepted, 42 yards total. Just on the flip side, Vanderbilt was called for 11 penalties, 8 of which were accepted for 93 yards. They could have had 108 penalty yards assessed to them on Saturday. Yeah, they turned into Missouri there real quick. That was kind of weird. Thankfully they did. I do want to talk about Blake Craig. I mean, I know we talked about a little bit just from like, he missed a couple ones that were frustrating and it made the game winner, obviously. But when you think back to Georgia 2022, and Harrison Mevis strutting around, right? 5 field goal night, 5 for 5. That was cool. It's also a loss. Missouri lost because they kept putting him out there. I don't understand how a coaching staff, or just Eli Drinkwitz, can go through that, like playing the number 1 team in the nation and turning to field goals 5 times and losing close. How you go through that and go, you know what? Let's do 6 against Vanderbilt. Let's do it 6 times. And instead of Harrison Mevis, we have a second-year kicker and a first-year actually with the kicking responsibilities. I don't know how they got there. I don't know what that decision-making was. I understand that you really want to beat Vanderbilt. You do not want to lose to them. You need to take the points when you can. You feel like your offense is scuffling. But I just, man, you don't put out a college kicker 6 times. They're going to miss at least 2 of them, and he missed 3. And I frankly view it as a absolute miracle that he did not gank that last one in overtime, because it was bad juju around his right foot. And given everything we know about this team, I was shocked that it went through.
Yeah, it was I was even more nervous for the extra point in overtime, honestly. Then once he got that one through, I felt a little bit better about the field goal they made in the second overtime. But the last, he had missed the previous 2 kicks, including his most recent one, which was just 10 yards off to the right, not even close. I'm not worried about him in the long run. I think he's perfectly talented. I think he kind of got in his head. My hope is that this will cause Drinkwitz to lose a little bit of faith in him this season, in the sense that he won't be playing for field goals, playing that once we cross the 40, okay, we got 3 points in the bag. Let's back off a little bit. Let's play more conservatively. And we can talk about, red zone issues here in a little bit, but
yeah, we'll get to
and some of the play calling there. But it kind of seems like, and this has been the case his entire tenure, once they get into field goal range, and which has been pretty extended in recent years, and it seems to be continue to be extended because Blake Craig has a great leg on him as well. Something changes. They move the ball great from the 25-yard line to the 40, 35, 25 to 35. They are moving the ball up and down the field. The playbook's open. They get closer in. Something changes, and I think that might be is a big reason, not the only one, but a big reason is a extreme trust in their kicker and the ability to kick long field goals. And if we can just back off of that a little bit, maybe the aggressiveness kicks up just a little bit, and they're a little more willing to press the envelope on 4th down. Because I would rather, on 4th and short inside the 30, I would rather them go for it just about any time, unless it's a tie game with 5 seconds left and the field goal will literally win you the game. I go for it. I trust our offensive line to do that. Now, don't let Brady Cook run the ball when you're doing that, but go for it. To be honest, this past game, though, there really were, I think maybe one of those 3 missed field goals was on a very short yards to go, where I would have preferred them to go for it. There were a couple of punts there where they could have gone for it. But overall, if he can lose a little bit of trust this year, still kick the obvious opportunities where it's 4th and 7, from the 25, okay, take the field goal there, take the points. But on the 4th and shorts, let's come on, let's let it hang loose a little bit,
Yeah.
Eli. That doesn't seem like that hasn't been his MO for 5 years, so I don't think that's going to change. But it'd be great. It'd be great if it would.
The other thing I want to point out is as much as we have lambasted this team for not being explosive, right, getting the big plays, that is really what kept them in the game for against Vanderbilt. Actually, Vanderbilt did a very good job of limiting those efficiency plays. I said it on Saturday. I know I put it in Beyond the Box Score. I'll say it again here. Vanderbilt figured out how to stop Missouri's offense. They knew that Brady either wouldn't or couldn't connect deep. And so they played their safeties close. They had their secondary play the receivers tight, press them on the line, and then just get the edge rushers upfield and be ready to tackle Nate Noel if and when he gets the ball. Obviously, a lot easier said than done. You still have to tackle, you still have to play football, but they figured out a way to stop or at least slow Missouri, and it worked. But the way that Mizzou countered was to have explosive plays. Which is something that they have struggled to do in the first 3 games. So if you can't be efficient, then you need to be explosive. And they had 11 explosive plays against Vanderbilt, which is the most they've had in a single game all year, which I know it didn't feel that way, but an explosive play is defined as a rush that goes for more than 12 yards or a pass that goes for more than 16. And they had 11. And what's crazy is that they had 77 plays on the day. So 11 plays, which is 14% of your total, generated 267 yards and 2 touchdowns, which that is 60% of your total yards in the day. And of course, 100% of your touchdowns on the day. 11 plays did that. That is the definition of an explosive offense. So even though Vanderbilt kind of stopped them from what they wanted to do, they, in a way, counterpunched and were able to create those big plays. We didn't talk about it enough on Saturday because I don't think I really realized it. It didn't feel like they had it, but that was their counter, and it worked this time. Can we finally get some big plays? Do you think that's the beginning of opening the dam here?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, they had the big plays. They had the 65-yard run. They had 25-yard pass to Burden for a touchdown, another 19-yard pass to Burden for a touchdown. Theo Weiss had a nice, I don't know whether that ended up being 35 or 40-yard reception up the middle of the field. So they were there. They were getting them. They were getting them. I don't know if I would trade those for the lack of efficiency on the other 60 plays of the game.
No.
If I would much rather move the ball across down the field at an efficient rate otherwise, and I'll give up 3 or 4 of those explosive plays.
Yeah.
But it worked this time, and I don't know if they were necessarily trying to do that. I mean, they weren't necessarily trying when they ran it up the middle, and Nate Noel happened to go untouched for 65 yards. I mean, they were trying to do that, but that wasn't they didn't dial that one up with the intent of it being a 65-yard run. Yeah. It was just the offensive line opening a massive hole and Nate Noel being really fast. So if they could keep opening up big holes and having our running backs be really fast, then they're going to get more of those in the running game, at least. In the passing game, they're going to have to do a little bit more work.
Yeah. Explosive plays are 3-pointers. You get hot and cold. Efficiency based games, 2, 3, 4, 5-yard gains. That's your 2-pointers. Those are your your layups, your mid range twos. And that efficiency offense is much more consistent long term. It's harder, but if you can do that, then you're probably pretty good as an offense. But if you can't, then you have to be explosive, and thankfully Mizzou was able to do that. So yeah, we'll see where that ends up as we go throughout the year. But we talked about Blake Craig, and I think I want to use that to transition to red zone offense, because you wrote a piece today, dropped on rockmnation.com. You can go check it out, talking about Missouri's struggles as far as scoring. A little bit of settling with Blake Craig, who, by the way, has gone out for 16 field goals, which is 3 more than the next closest team who has kicked a field goal. Just want to throw that out there. We're asking a lot too much of him. And there needs to be a different way to do it. So you broke down kind of what Mizzou's been doing and what they can do better. I'm just going to clear the floor here, and you talk.
So I looked at the last 2 games. The red zone, they weren't amazing in the red zone the first 2 games either, but the opponents were at such a different caliber that I didn't think it was worth analyzing. So it's a small sample, but I looked at the last 2 games because those are against Power 4 teams. They kind of mirrored each other pretty evenly, to be honest, in terms of how the team performed in the red zone. They had 5 red zone uh, possessions where they reached the red zone in each game. The Vanderbilt game was 4 possessions in the red zone. Then they had the second overtime where they moved into the red zone. So that counted as the 5th. That first touchdown to Burden was right on the 25. So that's technically, I did not count that as a red zone possession because they were outside of the 20-yard line. So if you wanted to add that add that into a red zone possession, you're welcome to do that. You kind of will, I'll get to my point here in a minute. It'll make my point even further if you want to do that. So 10 total red zone possessions in the last 2 games, 31 total plays out of those 10 possessions, which in and of itself, if you do the math, isn't great because that means they're on average not getting a first down while they're in the red zone. Now, a couple of the times they had a long run, for example, Noel's run all the way down to like the 6-yard line. They couldn't have gotten any first downs down there.
Mhm.
So that, they scored a touchdown that possession anyways. But on the whole, they're not averaging. They're averaging less than a first down per possession in the red zone, which is leading to a lot of field goals. So in those 31 plays, they ran the ball 16 times. They passed the ball 8 times. They kicked 6 field goals. I'm including field goal plays as plays. So 6 of the 31 total plays they ran were field goals. And then there's a holding penalty in there and a bad snap against Vanderbilt that we have. There was no telling what that was going to be, if it was going to be a pass or a run, because it never developed in any way. So that's the 31 plays. They gained 90 yards in 31 plays. That's less than 3 yards a play. Not very good. They had 45 yards on the ground in 16 plays, and then 45 yards in the air through 8 plays. So you can twice as effective in the air as they were on the ground. Running the ball, they averaged 22.8 yards per carry. Not very good. Way worse than the rest of the field, which makes a little more sense. The defense is going to be more condensed down there, and they also ran the ball a lot, which means they're starting to show some tendencies to what they like to do when they're in the red zone. Then at passing the ball, they were 4 for 8, so not a great efficiency there passing the ball. So things that worked in the red zone: passing the ball, obviously. 8 passes, 2 touchdowns. Okay, they scored 4 total touchdowns in the red zone in the last 2 games, 2 in the air, 2 on the ground. Of the 8 passing plays, 2 of them were touchdowns. That's a 25% touchdown rate. That's pretty good. The other 2 were catches were good, but not amazing. Then they had 2 touchdowns on the ground. 2 of those 4 completions that they had in the red zone, play action passes. Now I'll put a pin in that. We're going to come back to that. The other, they ran. Oh, I didn't have where's my wide zone? They actually did not run. Believe it or not, they ran a lot of wide zone. They did not run that in the red zone. They decided they weren't going to run it in the red zone for whatever reason. I don't know why. They ran it a couple times, not a much lower percentage than they did the rest of the field. Maybe they don't like the lack of space out there in that. They did run a lot of inside zone and some dive plays as well. So those are the numbers. They're not very good. Things that worked: play action passes. The first touchdown against Vanderbilt was a play action pass. It was they faked the wide zone, had Cook roll out the other side. They were able to sneak Burden. He lined up on the left. He was able to sneak through the entire defense because they all bit, especially the backside safety, bit on the wide zone run, and he was wide open in the flat for a pass. Walked into the end zone. That worked great. The other play action pass was another nice little play. He had to check it down though. I think it was just well covered. Checked it down in Norfleet for a 4 or 5 yard play in the Vanderbilt game as well. They did not run any play action passes in the Boston College game. What they need to do more of, and this goes, I think, in the entire field, but especially the red zone, more play action passing, especially because the only player that caught the ball that scored touchdowns in the red zone for Mizzou is Luther Burden.
Yeah.
And he's going to be covered by every single guy on the field if they know what they're doing. There's no way you're going to get this guy open unless you can convince the defense you're going to do something else. So they need to run more play action passes. That is going to open up the passing game even more than it already is. It's already way more effective than the running game in the red zone, at least through the last 2 games. Do more play action passes. That's going to open it up. It's going to force the defense to soften up a little bit on the receivers because they're going to have to focus on the running game. They've already established that they want to run in the red zone. They've done it half of their plays, more than half of their plays have been runs. It doesn't work very good, but runs don't have to work great for play action to work.
Yep.
Okay. That's a big misconception. Play action can work even if you're only averaging 2.8 yards per carry. It worked on that. It worked on that play to Burden. It will work in the future. It'll work across in the whole field. They need to do that across the whole field. Also, more pre-snap motion on the plays that they scored touchdowns on. They had pre-snap motion on the vast majority of the plays that they did nothing good on. It was static plays, and we've seen way more static plays this season, I feel like, than we did, especially later in the season. And now I have not tracked this specifically, but this is more of a feel than a knowing for sure, because I haven't written down every single play time that they've sent somebody in motion. Those plays tend to at least seem like they are way more effective than when they just get up, snap the ball. All right, because it makes the defense have to think a little bit more about who is covering who and where am I supposed to be, and he moved over there. Now what am I supposed to do for a split more second? And that split second can be the difference in a 70-yard touchdown pass or a 30-yard run up the middle, or a rally and tackle for 2 yards and a cloud of dust, which is what happened a lot. So those are, after looking at, those are going to be my big things. Oh, also, no more Brady Cook runs, please. No more Brady.
Say the joke. Say the joke.
Runs.
Say the joke.
Let Brady eat out.
Yeah.
Let Brady eat out. Okay. I tracked this as well. He actually only ran one time in the red zone against Vanderbilt. It was for a 1-yard loss.
Yeah.
Which led directly then to the missed field goal in the red zone.
Yep.
He did run 4 times on designed runs. There were a few scrambles, which I didn't count, but they designed 4 runs for him for a grand total of -5 yards. He had a run for -1, a run for 4, a run for -6, and a run for -2. I did not count the botched snap as one of those.
Sure.
The same goes for Boston College. Let me pull up those numbers. Anytime that so in the red zone in against Boston College, he did have 3 designed runs for a grand total of 3 yards. Now, he did score a touchdown on one of those runs, but that was entirely due to his own heroics. He did a weird stop, hammer time, juke back the other way, a missed tackle, a dive, and a touchdown. You do not want to design an offense relying on your quarterback who is athletic and a good runner, but is not Lamar Jackson, to have to make Lamar Jackson-esque type plays to score touchdowns. So I'm going to pull that one out. I'm not even going to count that one as a success because that was entirely on Brady and not on the play call itself. That was for 6 yards. That means he had 2 other runs for negative. Let me do the math here. -5 yards. Or no. Yeah, -3 yards. 2 runs for -3 yards and that 1 6-yard run for the touchdown. So that's not working anymore. I'm not sure it worked a little bit last year. It's not working this year. Defenses are onto it. They are keyed in on 2 people. They're keyed on Luther Burden. They're keyed in on Brady running the ball. That needs to come out at least till they can prove that they can do something else.
Yeah.
And honestly, they can spam Burden even though defenses are focusing on him, because he will beat one-on-one matchups. You cannot put one guy on him and expect to cover him or tackle him once he gets the ball. That's where we can bring play action back into it. That's where we can bring pre-snap motion into it, because if you motion him pre-snap, then all of a sudden they're going to have to figure out if they're supposed to double cover him on the other end of the field. 2 other guys are going to have to figure out that, oh no, we now need to double cover this guy. The chances that a college defense are going to do that perfectly every time, not a big chance.
Yeah.
So I'll end my rant there, but there's a lot that can be improved, and I don't think it doesn't take a rocket science to. I'm far from a rocket scientist here, but just looking at what they've done and how it's not working, I think they can clean that up quite a bit just with some changing in play calls.
Yeah. Nate Noel Wildcat, bring it back. We saw it.
Yeah.
I'm good with that. That's funky. That's new. You know, you can leave your personnel still on the field. It's a quick shift, and then, oh, what can he do? I remember sitting at practice 2 years ago, and we saw a Luther Burden Wildcat. I don't feel like I'm telling stories out of school here. Like it's 2 years ago.
They ran that his freshman year a few times early in the season.
Just to get him touches, right? Just to get him involved, because we had Dom Lovett in the slot, and Luther wasn't really doing super great as an outside receiver. So, you know, it was just, you can get funky, you can get creative in that sort of thing. And if you're hiding that for conference play, well, non-Vanderbilt conference play, okay, do not agree, but fine. You can argue that at least for another week. But yeah,
that veil it's time to lift the veil.
It is. Now. We're there.
If that's the case, it's time to do that. The other thing that I didn't mention, what we have not seen nearly at all, and for the most part, I'm okay with it, especially with who they give it to, but we have not seen the jet sweep at all this season. Maybe once in the first game that I'm recalling. And they used to love to give that to Mookie.
Mm-hmm.
It rarely, if ever, worked. They love to fake it to Burden, but they never, but they really even stopped doing that early on in this year. So that's another way to get Luther the ball in the red zone. Give him the ball in the jet sweep once or twice instead of faking
Buffalo game when he had 2 runs against Buffalo, right?
Yeah, and they might have. It wasn't in the red zone. He might have actually.
He had the touchdown.
Was that on a jet sweep though?
It was. Yeah,
they did try it. They did. You're right though that they did try it. The little pop pass that led to the fumble.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that kind of scared them off of that idea or not. But with the last 2 games, we haven't seen it.
Yeah,
and it's odd considering that those are the 2 stronger opponents, and I'm not sure if maybe they're trying to hold it back for even stronger opponents down the road. I don't know, but we haven't seen it, and it's worth a try at least once or twice in the red zone, because what they're doing now with Brady running power up the middle, or at least that's not going to work. It isn't working, and it's not going to work, especially against Texas A&M, which we will talk about next week. But their defensive line is nasty.
That's going to be such a huge upgrade over anything they have seen so far this year. I mean, I guess you could argue practice, but boy, I mean, just rattling off the defensive SP plus numbers of Missouri's opponents so far. Obviously, Murray State's FCS. Buffalo's defense is 58th, Boston College 51st, Vanderbilt coming in was 96th, Texas A&M is 29th.
Yeah. And that's probably a little lower than I expected it to be honest.
And it's probably going to jump after Arkansas. And by the way, Auburn's 27th. Alabama's 6th, Oklahoma 14th, South Carolina 33rd, Mississippi State 66th, Arkansas 55th. It doesn't get easier. It gets easier at the end, but whatever. I do something different. That's what the bye week's for. Got to figure it out. So, well done. You did a lot of good research, and you had a very funny order out joke for Brady Cook. That's good. Job well done. So let's talk about this team, because again, we are at the first breaking point. The bye week, I have 2 of them. Separates it into 3 4-game segments. So our first trimester is complete. We've got 4 games in the bag. We are 4-0. Good job, team. What I am doing this week and next week is looking at where Missouri stands from an advanced statistical standpoint after 4 games, just to give us an idea of what is it that we are looking at. How do I put a number to quantify what we are looking at? And so that's what I did. And I went through a couple categories. The overall offense, just to give you the punchline, the overall offense is 10th in the nation. And that is even with the stinker against Vanderbilt. Okay. Now, don't say that this is, they earned this against, garbage time in Murray State and Buffalo. No, once it hits garbage time, they don't keep track of stats for advanced stat purposes. So it's opponent adjusted and does not count garbage time. So this is not inflated by the caliber of opponent. Missouri is 10th in the nation as far as offense goes. They're 28th best as far as overall success rate. They're sitting at 49%. They are 109th in explosiveness, which we can all tell you that. Their big strengths right now is average field position. They're 8th in the country. They're averaging. They're starting on their own 36. They do not allow any havoc. The havoc rate they allow is 8.4%, which is 8th. And then their turnover margins +3, which ranks 32nd. So even though your points per scoring opportunities stink, currently 78th at 4.1. All the other little things that we talk about, field position, turnovers, efficiency, that is what's powering this Mizzou offense. And if you can't be good, be efficient. And that's where we're at. I mean, when I tell you that they're the 10th best offense in the nation, obviously it's on the paper. Do you believe that? Does it feel that way?
No, it doesn't. But I could see how it adds up that way. And I think an important thing to note is if the things that they are ranked very highly in, those are the things that you can't easily fix. If those were problems, you can't fix those. They're already doing the hard part. Those are the hard things, and they're doing those well.
Mm-hmm.
It's the details. It's the dotting the I's. It's the crossing the T's. It's the finishing the drives that they're struggling with, which is it kind of makes seeing those numbers makes it more frustrating that they can't put it in the end zone because they between the 20s they're fairly unstoppable. The amount of the number of possessions they cross the opponent's 40, as you mentioned, the scoring opportunities is and that's a big part of ranking an overall offense. They're doing it every time they get the ball, almost not every single time, but especially on drives where they don't have a stupid penalty. They're getting 3-4 first downs a drive. I would love to see what their 3-and-out percentage is because that's very low.
We are getting there.
And that's another and that's another one of those complementary things with the defense where the defense plays better when the offense stays on the field, and the offense is doing a great job of staying on the field. And that's in turn helping the defense, which is then in turn helping the starting field position. So they're playing that complementary game really well. They're just not hitting it over the line. And if they can start getting it over the line, this team will become the elite team that we know that it could be, that it can be. But it's that last 5% that they haven't quite gotten yet.
Yeah. So their rushing offense ranks 30th. They almost have a 50% success rate overall. It is actually the more explosive of the two. If you're looking at passing versus rushing, the running game is more likely to get an explosive play, which Nate Noel, we feel that way. Opportunity rate, how many times do they get 4 yards per carry? 54% of the time, which is excellent. That's 34th. And then stuff rate, they're one of the best. They making sure that runs aren't stuffed at or before the line with only 13%. Now, on the flip side, the passing game. I know this is going to sound crazy. It's actually a very efficient passing game. They're 24th in the nation in passing success rate, 129th in passing explosiveness, which, that feels very accurate. 10th in completion rate. We're counting Drew Pine in some of these. I understand that. Missouri has a 71.5% completion rate throwing the ball. That is 10th in the country. And again, their sack rate is only at 2.5%. So again, it's not super explosive, but it is efficient. Here's the big thing. So I was curious. I was actually talking to our friend BK last night while I was writing this, and we were just throwing out things that we wanted to check. 4 weeks of 2023 versus 4 weeks of 2024. Guys, it's the exact same. It's the exact same. The 2023 Missouri offense through 4 weeks had a 49% overall success rate. It's the same for 2024. The 2023 Missouri rushing offense had a 49.6% success rate. 2024 has a 49.6% success rate. And then the passing offense last year was 48.2% at this point. This year it's 48.5. It's the same as far as success rate goes. They're doing it differently, but the results are mostly the same as far as moving the ball. Now, you mentioned red zone and third downs. We'll go ahead and skip staring downs versus passing downs. I don't think I'm the only one who cares about that sort of thing. But you also asked about 3-and-out. Missouri's 3-and-out percentage, 8.9%. That is third in the nation. They are the third best team at staying on the field. Only barely 9% of their drives end up in a 3-and-out.
That's like 2007 levels of low 3-and-outs when Chase Daniel never went 3-and-out.
Yeah,
I don't think we've had a rate that low. Certainly not for a whole season since then. I couldn't imagine that we have.
And you know, a percentage of plays that gain negative or 0 yards. Again, this goes back to just efficiency. Only 24% of their plays go for negative or 0 yards. That is 13th best in the country. In these, we're still in the FCS overmatched G5 era of the schedule right now. They're 13th at it. Okay. And again, I gotta say it again, it's adjusted for opponents. That doesn't even matter. They Yes, the penalties are bad. Yes, the explosiveness isn't there, but they are efficiency. And to your point, they're playing complementary football, which is good. Let's talk about the red zone. Okay. We mentioned like, oh, between, once they cross the 20, everything falls apart. I can actually get more specific than that. Okay. Missouri's success rate when they are inside the 10-yard line is 51%. Okay. That is 57th in the nation. When they are between the 11 and 20-yard line, so full on red zone, they have a 65% success rate. That's 9th in the country. So between 20 and 10, that's not the problem, because the actual problem is when they're between the 21 and the 30-yard line, when their success rate goes from an overall of 49% to 26.5%, which is 122nd in the nation.
Yikes.
21 to 30. I don't know what's happening there, but you gotta fix that.
I think that is a big blinking red light back to the conversation we had earlier about the kicking game and the change in the philosophy. Once they reach into whatever they feel like is a comfortable kicking distance, it changes. And whether that's the coaching staff, the play calling, maybe it's in the mind of the offense themselves. We're like, okay, we've done the work. We're here. We've made it. I don't know where to pin that tail on the donkey, but there's something there when they cross the 30 where something changes, and the same mindset that is going on for whatever reason changes, and it shouldn't, because 30 yards is a lot. That's 90 feet. That is a lot of space to still have to cover. You can still throw it relatively deep. I mean, there's no reason. You're not condensing the field yet in any significant way that's going to change how the defense is playing you at that point. So there's really no reason why there should be such a massive change from the rest of the field, which is very good, then to the 30 to the 20, which is horrible, and then a little bit better as you get even closer to the end zone as well, which is a little surprising. But I think it comes back to some kind of mindset that changes at that point.
Well, I mean, they're getting inside the 20 by big plays, basically.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
yeah.
They didn't start on the 30 and get to the 20 over 3 plays. They got a big play to get them inside the 20. And at that point, you have momentum. You're like, all right, we can freaking do this. Whatever. We're playing for the touchdown now. That needs to change. And just because I did the comparison for overall rushing and passing, I'll do it here. Last year's team, their 21 to 30-yard line success rate was 62.5% at this point last year. That was 10th in the country. 10th. Now, 122nd. This is the same offense with a couple of quirks. One, they don't hit big plays as much as they used to. 2, they settle for field goals more than we like, because 3, they're less successful between the 21 and the 30. That's the only difference. It makes a huge difference in the results of the game, but that's it. Otherwise, they're the exact same offense.
Yeah.
So just fix that.
get rid of the mindset that there is a moat of lava at the 25-yard line. Apparently that they get there and they get scared, or the I don't know what it is. There's something different about the play calling, about the execution. I would be really interested to see, of all of their penalty problems, how many of those come in that range, which then pushes them farther out. I don't know. I don't know if that might have anything to do with the success rate or not, because do penalties factor into success rate on those specific plays?
No, it does not count. If it's not a play, then it doesn't count. If it's part of a play, then it does count. So I would have to go back in.
But it makes it harder to be a successful play if it's 2nd and 20.
It does.
You have to get 10 yards to make it, or no, is that 12 yards to make it a or 13 yards to make it a successful play at that point. So that's just a thought. I don't know if the penalties are more often to be taken in that part of the field or not, but I know that's where they started on their wonderful 2nd and 59. They started pretty close to there before,
Yeah.
and then before you know it, they're on their own in Vanderbilt's red or Boston College's red zone on the other end.
Yeah. I'm looking. I'm looking at the BC game because they only had 5 penalties against Vanderbilt. So I'm not really looking at that one. So far, Mizzou's been pretty clean once they get into scoring position. Now, okay, yeah, they had unsportsmanlike against Luther Burden, ineligible receiver for Cameron Johnson, blindside block, Mekhi Miller, unnecessary roughness. So that's 4 right there in scoring position, which knocked them out. And then on their second to last drive, nope, that was on BC. So nothing there. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't look like it's knocking them out. I think it's just bad play calling, frankly, which sucks. Now it's fixable, but that sucks. So yeah, that needs to improve. 21 to 30 yard line. That's an important place too. It's just as important as 11 to 20 and obviously the end zone. So hopefully we can figure that out. But it's the same offense. Looks a little bit different from explosive and from execution within the 21 to 30, but they can get there. They can get back. And frankly, I think this is the root of my optimism and why I'm kind of brushing Vanderbilt off as a clunker. And if they learn lessons, then we're fine. If they don't, then this was the harbinger of death. But if they can just understand what the difficulties are and they can correct it, or, get past the moat of lava that is a 25-yard line, then we're good. We're good. It's a hard lesson to learn in a victory instead of a hard lesson to learn at the end. I seeing how similar they are to last year with just 1 or 2 things that can be fixed different. I feel better about their offensive performance. And if you turn around and tell me that, oh, guess what? No, they're just going to win every game by 3 points. I might die halfway through the year, but I would also be happy. So yeah. I don't know. How do you feel going forward?
It doesn't make me feel better about their performance against Vanderbilt. It makes me feel better about their chances to fix it.
Sure.
For sure. Yeah. Because as we said, the hard things to do in offense, they're doing those already. All right. It's the the changing the play calls, it's the changing of the mindset and the mentality when you enter the scoring position that needs to change. And those are just that's something you can do mentally and internally, and the coaching staff and the players tweak what play calls you're calling, when you're calling them, and that I think that really is the answer there. It's much harder to make an inefficient team efficient than to make an efficient team be finish the drill. Right? Yeah. It's much harder to do it the other way. They're already efficient, and I'd much rather have an efficient team that isn't super explosive than an explosive team that will have 2 big plays a game and score touchdowns, and the rest of the time they're 3 and out punt, 3 and out punt, 3 and out punt, because you're putting your defense in really bad positions where maybe you end up scoring a similar amount of points, but your defense is always out on the field and they're run down, and they end up giving up way more points than you otherwise would if they were off the field more. We're not turning the ball over. Brady Cook has protected the ball. We're not putting the ball on the ground. Knock on wood, we're not putting the ball on the ground. Certainly not, at least in a way that is recovered. There's been a few fumbles, and they've gotten a little lucky on those, but they have not turned the ball over in these last 2 games. So those are the harder things to clean up.
Yeah.
So they're already there. Force a few more turnovers, finish a few more drives for touchdowns, and you're winning these games by 20 points. You're not winning them by 6 or 3.
Yeah. Well, we will see. They have a couple weeks to figure it out. I want to close on Missouri's former head coach, Barry Odom, and some wacky shenanigans he's been involved with today. I've been trying to keep up with this story. It's so weird. I woke up this morning, saw a tweet. I forget who. Might have been Dellinger, but now at this point, I've seen it from a lot of people. So UNLV, that is where former Missouri coach Barry Odom is currently the head coach of the Running Rebels of the University of Nevada in Las Vegas. Currently ranked, currently undefeated, having their best season since like the 80s. And their starting quarterback, his first name is Matthew. I have not heard his last name said out loud. I'm going to say Sluka.
I think it's Sluka.
Sluka. Matthew Sluka sends out a thanks for everything tweet, which you usually see from someone hitting the portal. And he says that he's going to take a red shirt year because he was promised things in his transfer from Holy Cross up to UNLV that have not been delivered on. And of course, that vagary leads to rumors and follow-up commentary. Seemed like our boy Barry was leaking to the media that Matthew was getting tampered with, and he was getting offers for more money to transfer in the 5th week of the year so that he couldn't play for another team until next year. And then of course, that's UNLV's statement that he's looking for more money. And so he's going to sit out. And then Matthew and his family came out and said that they were promised $100,000 to transfer from FCS team Holy Cross to UNLV. And so far, they have seen $3,000 of that. Promised different iterations of what that $100,000 is going to look like. Have not seen that money, and therefore are going to just sit the rest of the season out. Boy, you can really figure out where people stand on the modern college football game by this story alone. The takes are hot, folks. Nathan Hurst, where do you stand on this?
It's the whole thing is gross. I don't think anyone is covering themselves with glory here. I mean, I think that the player is at best just naive. I think, or his family was naive coming into it. Taking verbal promises of money without anything in writing. Now, is that a sleazy thing to do? Is to promise verbally that you're going to give someone a bunch of money and then not follow through with it? Yeah, very sleazy. Would not be the first time that a college coach has said something and not followed through with it. Unfortunately, that's been a part around as long as college football has been college football. Doesn't mean it shouldn't be different, but that's the way that it is. The UNLV and their staff aren't covering themselves with glory. At best, it looks like they misled or misrepresented what they were going to give this guy, or someone who did not have the authority to promise money was promising money. And then it turns out that he did not have the money that he was promising. Maybe he thought that he had that money and it wasn't there. No one knows. I'm doing my best to withhold overall judgment, other than because I don't know, and I don't think anyone other than the most inside staff of the football team and the Sluka family actually know what is going on here. Other than it's gross. The whole thing looks gross. It's gross to quit on your team. I get not wanting to pay for, or not wanting to play for money that you were promised and not given. And I get that. It still feels really gross. Especially when your team is succeeding and appearing like they have a great chance to do really great things that UNLV, the program, has not done in a long time, if ever, and they're on the doorstep of that. And so that's gross. It's gross that the program would promise money to someone and then not follow through with it. That's gross. The whole thing's gross. The whole state of NIL is gross. And I guess we'll blame here we go. We'll blame the NCAA. This is the NCAA's fault.
Yeah.
They screwed this up from the very beginning. They continue to screw it up by delaying and just not actually doing anything to fix it. There's a very easy fix. If the college presidents all got together and decided that we're going to now have all of our athletes sign contracts and where we write specifically in paper, here's what we're going to give you, here's what you're going to do in order to get what we're going to give you. And it's going to include monetary funds for the work that you perform. That would fix all of this. It's really easy. It does not take a master's degree in economics or business to figure that out. So it's gross. The NCAA is gross. The whole thing's gross. That's all I gotta say.
There's no way that this gentleman is being pulled out of UNLV. There's just not. Show me a program right now who is desperate for a quarterback with a 43.8% completion percentage and a 7.7% sack rate. Show me one who wants that right now. If you have not watched UNLV, I'd suggest you do. It's a super cool offense. Brandon Marion's their offensive coordinator. He calls it the go-go offense. It is basically just almost completely ground-based. It's almost triple option-y and how it is utilized. And the passes are all just chuck it 20 yards down the field and hope something great happens. It is let me pull it up, 114th in success rate, passing success rate, 132nd in completion rates, and number 1 in explosiveness. Because when they do connect, it goes for like 50 yards, but they only do that like 6 times in the first 3 games. So it's not a good passing offense. He is not very good. He's a decent runner, and it relies on a mobile quarterback to get things done. But there's not a team in this country who wants that guy. So don't trust whoever on Barry's side was leaking that. That is not true. If this was a deliverable, or if this was something that was promised that is not being delivered on, shame on those who promised that. Again, like you said, this is not the first time it's happened, but that sucks. I will point out, though, if they believed that Mr. Sluka was vital to their playoff run, which they are the highest ranked G5 team right now, I guarantee you UNLV would have ponied up the $90,000 that they owe this kid, right? Just, it's Vegas. Go down, find a guy on a heater, say, we'll comp you a room. You give us all these chips and you just hand them over to him, right? Like this is not hard. Even the brokest of broke ass programs can find $90,000 in the couch cushions for their quarterback who's leading them to a playoff, which will get them $1 million for showing up, something like that.
At least
2 million, 3 million. Like they would find a way. Okay. So if this is, hey, we didn't know what this kid was going to be. We gave him pie in the sky promise that maybe or maybe not we deliver on. And now he's asking for the checks to be cashed and he's fine, but we don't care. What do the kids say? Bet, right? Bet. Yeah, we're not going to give it to you. Now what are you going to do? And so he's going to sit out and they'll just plug him in with, what's his name? I forget their backup. It's like Haj Malik Williams. Just throw him in there, see what happens. And I think they're going to be fine because you don't need to be a great passer to run this offense. You just got to have a decent nose for the run. So I think truly it was just, we don't think you're vital to this program succeeding. Bye. So I don't know what's going to happen. Did you see that one of the running backs is now redshirting too? Did you see that?
I did. If you look at his play time over the last 3 games, it's steadily gone down. So he actually clarified his timing was not great when he announced. But he clarified later that it was purely for playing time purposes and opportunities and not NIL based. He actually said I have not received a dime nor was promised a dime of NIL from UNLV. Whoops. So I respect him for clearing that up.
He's an NC State transfer too, so like he was.
He transferred there to play, and he wasn't playing, and so
he's playing.
He's gonna
that's an easy one. That's an easy one. Yeah, it's gross. It's gross. But I guarantee you these things have happened before. It's just you didn't have it aired out in public because you couldn't, because that would bring sanctions.
And the relatively new change where you can play in 4 games and then still redshirt. So that it helps a lot of kids that are going to play in 4 games and realize that this, for whatever reason, this isn't for me, and they can sit out, or it helps teams get some experience for freshmen, but not have to burn an entire year when they know they're not going to play them down the road against better teams. That's really what it was meant for. It wasn't meant for players to be pissed off about their NIL and then quit their team halfway through. Now that that's not the whole part of the story, and that only, I don't want to focus on that as the primary thing that I'm mad about with this whole story. The whole thing is gross. I agree that he wasn't getting he was not getting tampered with to get pulled out. Now, was he getting frustrated that he wasn't getting his money and thought he had more leverage than he did to? Yeah, absolutely. Or maybe he wanted more than what they had promised and still had yet to deliver. Maybe he did. Regardless, it seems like he overplayed his hand with Odom, and we'll find out very quickly whether or not that was a decision that Odom will regret or not. We'll see, because they're primed to do good things, and it sounds like their offense doesn't really need him to do it. So
Brandon Marion is gunning for a P2, P4 OC job. Barry Odom's trying to get a P4 job, probably Arkansas. If they thought this kid was going to help them do that, they would have done it something, like just flat out. I believe it. So yeah, I think he overplayed his hand. And we also know Barry's an emotionally angry guy. So, maybe this was not a super pleasant conversation with mom and dad and Matthew. Who knows? But yeah, this is the world we live in, So and we saw Barry Alexander at USC is now going to take a redshirt year. Probably find another school. If they have this power, let them use it. Right? I'm fine with it. It just, it's odd. And this one with the Slukas is a little sleazy, but this is not my team.
Don't think, yes, number one. And also don't think that this won't get used against Barry Odom in every recruiting battle that he goes up against.
For sure.
Even no matter where he ends up down the road, this is going to get recalled. Remember the guy that said that was promised all this NIL money, and Barry's promising you all this NIL money, and he's not going to deliver. So why would you risk that and waste a whole year of your life when you could come over to Sweet Talk and Eli Drinkwitz? We've got all the NIL money over here, baby.
Oh boy.
I didn't mean to get sexy there, but
you really cranked it till
it will get used against him for the rest of his career, and maybe not the rest of his career, but the next several years, until they figure out whatever this mess is. And I have very little faith that it will be figured out anytime soon. It'll be a topic, and this will not be the last time that something like this has happened. This is every kind of thing like this needs a catalyst.
Mm-hmm.
Sitting out bowl games for players going into the NFL draft needed a catalyst, and now that's a very regular occurrence. This is going to start happening more and more. It sucks that it is. I don't want it to happen. I want schools to fulfill the promises that they made, and I want players to keep playing with on the team that they promised that they would compete for and with. But that's not the world we live in at the moment.
Yeah. Get stuff in writing, folks. Get it in writing. That's I might take away from this one. But that's the show for today. As always, we appreciate the downloads and the subscriptions. You can leave a comment or rate us. We love all types of feedback from you all. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Nate G. Edwards. He's at Burst to Hurst. And of course, you can follow the Rock M flagship at Rock M Nation and our podcast and outlet at Rock M Radio. We appreciate you tuning in this time. We'll try to do better next time. And until then, MIZ.
ZOU.